Good evening, friends. Welcome to the Christian Emergency League. Our subject today, the uproar at a recent school board meeting in Dearborn, Michigan. I'm Pastor Calvin Lindstrom, joined by JT in the great state of Georgia. Hopefully, James Pittman will be back with us soon. He's had a very busy schedule the last couple of weeks, so we'll hopefully see him in another week. But JT, last week we talked a little bit about the Senate race in Georgia. I don't want to dwell on that since we did a whole show, but anything to update there on that situation?
Nothing other than it's close, and there's a few more facts coming out about Mr. Warnock. So you all can research those yourself. Video of him trying to run over his wife with a car just a couple years ago, and various stuff. So.
Yeah, it well could be that both candidates have some stuff that's not very pleasant, and not that we're trying to justify things, but you do have to realize both situations, right?
Right. Both public figures, both have been in front of people for a while, and sometimes you got to look a little bit deeper than the surface to find out who somebody really is and go cast your vote. So.
Yeah. So, JT, you brought this story to my attention. I had missed it. Let me share from the USA Today. I guess it's kind of a newspaper of sorts.
No.
I'm not sure what you call it, but this is, let me share from USA Today. And their article, Please Calm Down. School board meeting descends into chaos as protesters target LGBTQ books. And this is from 2 days ago, Detroit Free Press, October 11th, 2022. And the article describes how hundreds of protesters packed a Michigan school board meeting Monday night. They shut it down with cries of anger over certain LGBTQ books they said are too sexually explicit for children. There was a heavy police presence there. And according to this article, most of the crowd appeared to be in opposition to the books, but there were also a number of people with the American Federation of Teachers Union, they're always on the good side, who showed up to support inclusion of LGBTQ people and others. Anyway,
that's interesting. So you had the teachers union there against the parents.
Right.
They intertwined that word protester when the parents were there, and it was the parents.
That's a good call, JT. Because if you're not for the American Federation of Teachers, then you have to be a protester. As it
right. Which goes back to the thought that many of the I don't know. I don't think it's our teachers. I think it's really the politicians and the teachers' leadership that think that once a child gets into school, the child belongs to the school system, not the parents.
Right. Now,
I think you saw it played out.
No, that is the language of they become our children. Is it's not a foreign concept to some of these people. Now, it was you shared with me a Washington Post column,
right?
On Twitter, you get some interesting. Let me see if I can find a few here. Twitter is a little more interesting on this. That man definitely looks Middle Eastern there, and that is part of what we. Let me see if I can find some of the signs.
As most of the Dearborn community is.
Yes, right. Here, hundreds of Muslim protesters is the headline. Interesting, USA Today did not seem to mention that. there was a shooting in Dearborn. But here is another picture, and again, it's a good question here. Will AG Merrick Garland, I was spelling him Merritt Garland, send out his FBI to investigate Muslims protesting
Hmm.
alongside Christians? If you went to a school board meeting, you got put on the FBI watch list
Right.
not too
Right.
long ago, and then a number of the signs were written in Arabic. I'm not sure
Hmm.
exactly what they thought would happen writing them in Arabic there. So,
Yeah. Well, Calvin, I would tell you probably since that's their home language, and
yes.
many of them might be first generation Americans, while the second generation are their children. They would
Yeah.
write it in Arabic naturally. We'd do that,
Yeah.
and
So, yeah, you see, like this one, he looks like he has a sign in English and Arabic.
right, right. So he's for both communities.
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to send, a message to the English speaking community and at the same time the Arabic
Well,
speaking community.
and him holding up signs, I don't know that he was actually thinking that they'd go around the world.
Right.
He may, because it's a school board meeting, he may just been holding both of them up for the local communities. If there are any of the um, perhaps newer Muslim immigrants that are there
Right.
that can't read English yet, he was holding up a sign saying, "Hey, I want you all to know what's going on. That there are books here." I'm reading some of the titles now
Yeah.
from another article. The book is gay. This book is gay. Red, White, Royal Blue, and Lovely Bones were three of the books that were there,
Hmm.
and they were protesting those, and they just wanted to make sure, hey, we as parents don't approve of what you're trying to indoctrinate our kids with.
Yep. And with the Babylon Bee article, I thought was Muslim families back on no-fly list after attending school board meeting. I thought that was well done, Babylon Bee.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
interesting.
clever.
I guess that is Rashida Tlaib's district. Um,
Mm-hmm. It is. It is.
and how, this I always find interesting. Rashida would definitely be on the side of the school board on this,
No doubt, no
right?
doubt, because right, because they're funding her campaign. So
But
of course.
how, as I think a self-identified Muslim, how
Mm-hmm.
she can play that angle, I always found is very interesting. Ilan Omar in Minnesota, kind of the
Minnesota, right.
same. How do they? How does their quote community even let them get away with this?
Well, Calvin, it's interesting that both of them are so far one-term politicians. Will they win their second term?
Well, I think Omar has I think she's in her second term.
Okay, okay,
I
okay.
believe. And then this is similar. What a conundrum in 50% Muslim Dearborn, Michigan, as angry parents push back. Will DOJ and teachers unions call these folks terrorists?
Terrorist, right,
And
right.
this
Well,
was
as they,
yeah, I can't I have to see if I can verify this, but the evolution of white supremacy in Dearborn, Michigan, Muslim parents who oppose teaching pornography to children become the new face of the far right.
yes, yes, strange bedfellows, right?
Yeah, it is there. It's
Yeah,
interesting to see. So if these were mostly Christians, they would have called it Christian nationalism.
right, right.
And there is, yeah, it is interesting. Erwin Lutzer uh, talking about, in his view, there is a threat in a way of the Islamic community as they advance Sharia,
Hmm.
some of their principles. And
Right.
he pointed out a demonstrator, a Muslim demonstrator, saying, "We're going to use your constitution to kind of go after you."
Hmm.
And it is interesting. Leftists tended to, in some cases, view the Muslim community as an ally.
Right, right.
Now, here's an interesting question: are Christians teaming up with them on as an ally in this? Is it
Well,
just a matter of
and it's about the question. Um, it also can be viewed as an opportunity, though, because obviously the Muslims' view on where what we should be teaching our children is very similar to Christians' view, and it gives a common basis to share the gospel with those Muslims,
hmm
uh, especially knowing that they enjoy the freedom they don't have in their home country.
right,
So the one thing they don't want to give up, I'm sure, is that freedom,
right,
which
hmm
Sharia law would take away from them. So I think it may be, it's an interesting concept of what's going on,
it is.
but it may be an opportunity for the churches in especially in that area, evangelical churches, to reach down and perhaps share the gospel with them.
Well, yeah, and that would be a wonderful thing. Here's the other interesting question: are
Mhm.
evangelical churches as concerned as the Muslim community on this particular issue?
And that's a good question. And I don't know what you've seen in Illinois. I mean, here in Georgia, um, we're not to this point yet. These books are not in our library in our community. They may be in the Atlanta area, but not in our community in rural Georgia. But I
Interesting.
think you may find them though in the Chicagoland area.
Oh, definitely. And what
Yeah.
James especially has found when he goes to school board meetings, JT, he's not. Some of them actually, there was a decent Christian presence.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, yeah, I would attend some of them with him. Palatine, District 211 in our area,
Right.
but
Right.
for the most part, very few Christians, very few pastors
Hmm.
speaking on these issues. So it is interesting, as I say, in Dearborn, it would appear, and I shouldn't judge the Christian community without knowing the whole story, but at least from the some of the headlines, it would seem that it is the Muslim community that's more up in arms, rightfully
Arms
so,
right. Right.
and they recognize that this does not comply with their worldview, and so they are
Hmm.
upset. And too many Christians, apparently, are not concerned enough. You know,
Well, and but we've discussed this before, Calvin, is how the Christian church in America had a lot of the Christian church woke theology has come in, which would be accepting of this.
right?
And it's not the majority of churches anymore that will can just stand up and say, no, this is not right,
hmm
and condemn it and try to protect our children. We're tolerating the intolerable.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Right, accepting the unacceptable, and
Yep.
that's where a lot of churches are. Instead of being God pleasers, we've become people pleasers and don't want to offend anybody.
hmm
Which, of course, we can talk about being offensive later. I think you choose to be offended. I don't
hmm
think of being offended is a something we throw around
Right.
nowadays. But did there start that many churches in America that'll stand up and say, "No, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Let's go out and speak against it."
Right. And JT, if there are pastors listening here, um, how do you? What's the message we would share with a pastor on this? Let's say this
Um,
was happening either in Georgia, or this is happening in Palatine, Arlington Heights, Illinois. You well,
yeah,
let me,
yeah,
and I will say this: these books. I don't have the exact list of books. You read some of them. I'm sure these
that's right.
books are in the suburban school system in Cook County, Illinois.
Hmm.
I can
Yeah.
almost guarantee you that the majority of these books are either part of the curriculum or in the library, in the local libraries. Not so. Why should pastors be concerned and even seek to raise a voice in opposition to these books being in a curriculum.
Well, Calvin, I look at it like this. I think um, that when you see these books put on bookshelves in schools, you know that students are going to take them down and read them. Knowing how the indoctrination process takes place and the LGBTQRXY, however many letters they have now, community is targeting young people
Mm-hmm.
to transition. Matter of fact, James in one of his roundtables did a great job of exposing
Mm-hmm.
what's going on in California and talking about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There is never a wrong time to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Jesus didn't call us to stand with the majority; He called us to stand for Him
Right.
and to stand on what's right.
Yeah.
So even if you're the only pastor in the area that's willing to take a stand,
Mm-hmm.
I believe we've got to take a stand for the safety of our children in our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That if I'm the only one that takes a stand against these, my children, my grandchildren are important enough to me
Right.
to take a stand and say, no, this is not right. These
Mm-hmm.
don't need to be in our school. If other parents want their children to read these, that's fine. They can have them in their homes, but they don't need to be in our education system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And uh, we're talking about taxpayer funded schools,
No.
right?
Yes.
If you
Yes.
are a taxpayer, and we all are at some at
That's right. That's
varying
right.
levels, right? If you are a
If you're not,
taxpayer,
we've got another conversation for you.
then you have a voice, in my opinion, right? If you are a
Yes.
taxpayer,
Yes.
you have a voice. And as a Christian pastor, when you consider what is being taught to children, how can these things not concern us? How
Right.
could
Right.
we just say, oh well, okay, no big deal. This is not something private going on between adults or consenting adults,
Right.
whatever. This is in a public taxpayer funded public school
Yes.
system where still the majority of children in this nation, Christians and non-Christians, are
Mhm.
educated. So this idea of just being silent is it's not permissible
Right.
as
Right.
as
And
a love for our neighbor, and you mentioned even our family for that matter.
yeah, and if you're the pastor of a church, just know that if you accept this into your school system, it'll be in your church
Yes.
at that same time because the children, once they've read it, they'll bring it to church
Oh,
with
with
them.
with without a doubt. Yes,
Yeah. So
without a doubt.
so so if we're training up a child in the way he should go,
Yeah.
then once they read this book, you've got to retrain them
Yeah.
somehow. But
Yeah.
retraining against the public school system is a huge challenge.
Yes, it is. And if you study the evolution of the homosexual movement, they realized the schools would be the perfect vehicle
Right.
for recruitment and for further, I'm going to say, further desecration of our nation. And of course, with the legalization of so-called gay marriage, the Supreme Court, um, you recognize that that's it's part of our culture now, because the highest court in the land has said this is a marriage now. So
Right.
everything has been affected as a result. Some areas, like you mentioned in Georgia, I'm glad to hear they're not teaching these things yet. But I do know in rural areas, these things are in the schools,
Hmm.
almost to the same degree, maybe not to quite exactly as in suburban or very urban areas. So I'm glad to hear it's not in Georgia yet, but I would almost say just wait a second, unless you
Right.
are really
Right.
standing up for these
Well, and
things,
it's
right?
yeah, right, and to and this is going into the library at school. And so the only way to make sure it doesn't go in there is to constantly keep track of what's coming
Right.
into the school's library.
Yep.
Well, but be on the lookout too, because my daughter-in-law is a second grade teacher. When she brought home the, I guess, the scholastic book sheet that the
Mm.
children can order,
Yeah.
some of these books are in there for the
Yeah.
children to order if they so wish.
Yeah. That's those larger, um, yeah, booksellers, no doubt,
Right.
are they are part of the agenda, or at least have no problem with the agenda. So yeah, you could unwittingly be introducing these things to the school system. Well, that's yeah, it's a fascinating story just because of the different dynamics.
Right.
There is, I think, for a long time also we were of the opinion that the public square could be this neutral square. The public school system could kind of be this neutral place. And in my understanding, neutrality is only a time to see which side's going to win. In a football game, the refs should be neutral, but eventually
Right.
someone wins. And uh, the push for, okay, we're not going to have any explicitly Christian or this. That's only until, as I say, one side wins and
Friends.
the
Right.
law reflects a worldview. And we are I think a lot of Christians thought the public square was kind of this neutral space.
Hmm.
And
Well, and
this, yeah, go ahead.
we used to think that college campuses were um,
Places of open
places you
debate.
could facilitate debate,
Yeah.
but no, that's no longer in America.
No, it's not.
Now, if you don't agree with the 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 beliefs of one person,
Right.
one particular viewpoint, um, you are your free speech
Hmm.
apparently is gone. And there are many campuses,
Right.
even University of Florida, just because a Republican senator was going
Oh,
to be their president.
Ben Sass,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Right, right. All of a sudden, he gets protested because the students don't want him to be their president because he's too conservative.
Yeah. Yeah. That was interesting. And
Yeah.
Christians who are showing some measure of concern now are often labeled
Mhm.
Christian nationalists.
Yes.
If you show any concern, that's white supremacy. And what I find interesting is most of, however you define a minority community today, they're not for this at all, even
Right.
less than the what supposed white Christian nationalists
Difference.
would be. I think
Well,
it's yeah.
I think that this issue of having these books in an elementary school or a preschool setting, there's a very small minority that thinks this is okay.
Yeah.
Uh, our challenge is how many school systems, how many parents, how many even teachers know to look for this.
Hmm. Yeah. And unfortunately, in many cases, the minority that's committed and organized drives the agenda. The
Right, right.
majority are too worried about Thursday night football or other matters, sadly,
Mhm.
and
Yes,
we
yes.
have conceded the ground in many cases. I will say when James was trying to rally support for basic human decency, it became a fight, and Hollywood money and other outside interests took note of it, and
Right.
really the Christian or the conservative position got beat, even in, we'd say, was one time a somewhat conservative area, because unfortunately still too many people aren't really engaged at the school board or
Hmm.
the school community level. There are some, but they've been able to run things for quite a while, I think, without too much opposition,
Right.
or they can beat the opposition, put it that way. So, well, JT, I think our prayer should be for Christians in this area, even as a means of outreach to the Muslim community. I'm glad that
Yes.
Muslims are opposed to this, and
Yes, yes. I would be glad if an atheist was opposed to it,
right,
or a Muslim, or Hindus. I would pray that um, that any parent or grandparents or brother or sister would be opposed to
yeah,
this.
exactly. And may it be an opportunity for faithful witness in this.
Yes, yes.
Well, friends, thanks for watching. Share your comments, questions, suggestions you have. Otherwise, we'll be back, Lord willing, at about this time on Thursdays, about 7:45 Eastern Time, 6:45 Central Time, Chicago time, and Lord willing, James will be back with us. But JT, good talking with you, and we'll keep tabs on
Good talking to you,
Georgia and
Calvin.
Pennsylvania and the University of Florida too.
That's right.
What's
That's
going on
right.
there? So take care.
But take care. Good night, everybody.